So this is exposed. Japanese military expert admits that no soldier trains like a Filipino soldier. A lot of you guys linked this over. I'm excited to see it. It's a whole story. And let's just get to it.
Have you ever heard a Japanese colonel quietly whisper under his breath, "We can't train like them. We simply don't have what they have"? At first, you might think he's talking about elite American commandos or Israeli special forces, but he wasn't. He was talking about Filipino soldiers. Yes, Filipino. Sounds like something out of a movie, doesn't it? But this isn't fiction. It's something that stunned even hardened military experts from one of the most disciplined, methodical forces in the world.
I actually might have heard about this. I actually might have heard about this before, especially with everything that was going on recently. I think I did hear about this.
And ground self-defense force. It happened during a closed-door training observation in Mindanao. A team of Japanese military observers had come for a bilateral exercise with the Philippine Army.
Yes.
Nothing unusual. These kinds of collaborations happen all the time. But what they witnessed during those days, and more importantly, what they felt, would stay with them forever. One officer, known for his composure, reportedly stood still for a full minute after watching a group of Filipino soldiers complete a high-risk endurance drill through rain and mud. "They do it like it's nothing," he said in disbelief. "No complaints, no breaks, just heart." The man who would later reveal this story wasn't just any Japanese officer. He was Colonel Masaru Hidetaka, a specialist in asymmetric warfare and psychological resilience, a tactician with over 25 years in the field. He had trained with NATO, consulted in Afghanistan, and taught in elite academies. He thought he had seen it all until he came to the Philippines. His words didn't make it into headlines. There was no grand press release. But his quiet confession, shared during an off-record moment with a Filipino general, would echo far beyond that humid camp. Because it was more than just admiration. It was a kind of awakening.
Yeah.
Colonel Hidetaka had come to the Philippines expecting to assist, to share knowledge, lend discipline, maybe offer tips on strategy. What he didn't expect was to be humbled.
Wow.
He watched how Filipino troops trained with no visible resources.
I think it's beautiful how he even admitted to it, right? Like seeing the soldiers, being impressed and saying that. Because sometimes what a lot of like higher ups would do is they would like pretend not to be impressed. They wouldn't even say it. They would kind of just be like, "Get back to work, keep going," right? Like, but he actually admitted, is like, wow, like you guys are unlike anything I've ever seen. I don't know if he specifically told them, but even still, he admitted to other people, Filipinos are some of the best soldiers I've seen. No one trains like them, right? And that's a beautiful thing to hear from a higher up, especially in Japan, man.
Often reusing equipment well past its prime. He noticed how they carried not just physical weight, but emotional burdens. Many were fathers, sons, survivors of storms, of insurgencies, of heartbreak. And yet, in every exercise, in every shout of "Kaya natin too," they gave more than he thought was humanly possible. It wasn't brute strength that impressed him. It was their ability to smile while bleeding, to laugh through exhaustion, to carry a wounded brother while still pushing forward. "This is something we don't teach," he later said. "We can't, because it's not technical. It's something in their soul." That moment, that realization shook him. For Colonel Hidetaka, it was a turning point. He began to see the Philippines not just as a country of warm beaches and hardworking migrants, but as a forge. A place where spirit is tempered, where warriors are born not in the gym, but in hardship. Where discipline is not yelled into you, but passed down like a family heirloom.
Bro, I've said this every time when I mention typhoons, when I mention everything, what it builds in resilience for Filipinos. They're so used to these things, and instead of taking it out on other people, they look inside themselves and realize, I don't want this upon anybody else. So what I'm going to do is live grateful with gratitude. I'm glad to be alive every single day because these typhoons could have taken me any other day. And on top of that, let's be honest, the boxers in the Philippines, bro, look at Manny Pacquiao. Look at them. They are incredible. Even the Olympics, one of the Filipinos are incredibly athletic, right? He won the gold medal, I'm pretty sure, from what I remember. And they all show this, even in sport, a higher resilience because of those facts. I guarantee it probably is those facts that are embedded in their genes, right? And it's beautiful to see that because now, after especially having a Filipino friend and knowing these, it's incredible, bro. Being in the Philippines too and witnessing it, a lot of the work that they would do, a lot of the things that they would push through, it's incredible, bro.
One particular scene haunted him. During a night navigation drill, rain had turned the hillside into a slippery death trap. One Filipino recruit slipped, rolled into a ravine, and dislocated his shoulder.
Oh my gosh.
Hidetaka assumed they'd call off the exercise. Instead, 2 fellow soldiers descended into the dark, hoisted him up with makeshift ropes, and finished the drill carrying him. All 3 completed the course. The injured one never uttered a word of complaint. Later, Hidetaka asked why. The soldier simply replied, "Sir, quitting isn't in our blood." That line, that moment, it pierced through Hidetaka's military theories, through his years of academic research. It was more than pride. It was identity. Filipino resilience wasn't a technique. It was culture. It was faith. It was family. It was 1,000 years of rising again after every fall.
Yeah.
And perhaps, just perhaps, that was what the world didn't fully understand yet. Why would a country battered by typhoons, challenged by political instability, and still recovering from centuries of colonial wounds produce such indomitable soldiers? Why would men and women with so little still fight with so much heart? Hidetaka became obsessed with finding the answer. He extended his stay, spent time with local units in Luzon, Visayas, and the conflict-scarred lands of Mindanao. What he found in each region varied, but one thread remained unbroken: a deep, unshakable belief in something greater than oneself. In a hushed conversation with a chaplain in Zamboanga, he learned that many soldiers pray together before missions, not for safety, but for strength to do what must be done.
Wow, dude.
Not one prayer was about survival. It was about service, sacrifice, purpose. And that, Hidetaka realized, was the secret no textbook could teach. He began to document his observations,
It's incredible.
not for the Japanese military, but for himself. Late at night, by candlelight or generator hum, he would jot down lines in his notebook. Filipino soldiers don't fight because they are told to. They fight because they choose to. I need to understand why. The general looked at him for a long moment. Then he said something that changed everything. "Because, Colonel, they know what it means to fight for a home that still needs healing, and they know, if they don't stand, who will?" That answer hit harder than any explosion.
Wow.
It wasn't about nationalism. It was about responsibility. Every Filipino soldier carried not just a rifle, but a burden. To protect a country that had often failed them, yet one they never stopped loving. As the
Wow,
final drill
dude.
began, Hidetaka watched Filipino troops move with precision, grace, and a kind of raw intensity that felt ancestral, like warriors born from fire and flood. And in that moment, he understood. No, the Filipino soldier was not the most technologically advanced, not the most resourced, but they were something far rarer. They were driven by a cause. And no training in the world, no simulation, no classroom could replicate that. The world had overlooked them for too long, judged them by their gear, not by their grit. But Hidetaka had seen the truth, and now he couldn't unsee it. After the drills in Nueva Ecija, Colonel Hidetaka returned to Tokyo, but something inside him had shifted. His colleagues noticed it. The man who once gave precise, clipped reports now spoke with unusual reverence when he mentioned the Philippines. During a closed military seminar on regional security, one younger officer asked him a casual question. "Sir, Which ally do you think has the strongest infantry in Southeast Asia? Hidetaka didn't even blink.
Philippines.
The Philippines, he said. The room went quiet. You mean tactically? Someone asked. Or logistically? He paused. Then he said, spiritually. That word, spiritual, doesn't often belong in military briefings.
Yeah.
But Hidetaka insisted. He showed a photo of a Filipino soldier carrying 2 injured civilians on his back during a flooding rescue, soaked to the skin, but still smiling.
Wow.
Then he pulled out a video clip of a joint field exercise where Filipino troops, despite blisters, hunger, and sleep deprivation, completed a 40-kilometer endurance test without a single dropout. But what made the room fall silent was a letter. A handwritten note from a Filipino private Hidetaka had trained with in Cagayan de Oro. The soldier had given it to him on his last day. In broken English, the letter simply read, "Thank you for seeing us, sir. Most only see our uniforms, not our hearts. You did both.
Wow.
I will never forget that." Hidetaka read that line aloud, then folded the letter with care and placed it back in his pocket. From that day on, he became something else, not just a soldier, but a storyteller. He began giving talks at Japan's Defense Academy, not just about tactics, but about human strength. He spoke about the resilience of people born into struggle, about the unseen value of faith, family, and pride in uniform. He started writing articles, quietly at first, and later for respected military journals. One of his pieces went viral among Asian defense circles. Its title was simple, "The Warriors We Forgot to See." In it, he described Filipino soldiers as the embodiment of what modern armies had lost: soul. Not blind obedience, but willing sacrifice. Not polished machinery, but beating hearts that chose to serve not for fame, but for country, for kin.
Yo, that's another thing. You can't teach that. You can't teach these kinds of things. These kinds of things are something that either you're born into and then you almost feel obligated to do because it's a part of who you are. And some people just can't understand that it's not something that you were just born with, right? It's something that you need to live through and something you need to experience. Like when you're born in the Philippines, you aren't just automatically built like this. You're born in the Philippines, you experience the Philippines, and then you become this because it becomes who you are at that point.
For a dream of peace they might never live to see. The response was overwhelming. Emails from American veterans, Australian officers, even South Korean NCOs poured in. Many had served with Filipinos. All of them echoed the same sentiment. They never give up. But the most powerful message came from an elderly Japanese general, a man who had once fought in Mindanao decades ago during a dark chapter of World War II. Now retired, he sent a handwritten letter to Hidetaka. "In my youth, I fought the Filipino soldier with fear. Now, in my old age, I admire him with honor.
Wow.
You reminded us of what we once refused to acknowledge, that among the bravest we ever met were men who had so little, yet gave so much." That letter changed something in Hidetaka. He realized this wasn't just about soldiers, it was about legacy, about how nations see each other, how narratives are built, and who gets remembered. So he made a decision that surprised many in his ranks. He returned to the Philippines, not as an officer, but as a visiting lecturer, a volunteer advisor. He gave up his command. And he came back not with weapons, but with notebooks. He began interviewing soldiers, veterans, widows, orphans. He wanted to build an archive, a living history, so the world could know what he had seen. Not the headlines, not the politics, but the stories. Like that of Sergeant Rosalinda, a mother of 3 who led a rescue team during Typhoon Haiyan and carried 17 people to safety in a single day.
In a single
with a broken
day, bro.
rib.
Oh my gosh. Yo, I need you to understand something. When you take something greater than yourself and you seek to accomplish that, not because of your need or greed or anything like that, when you take all that out the window and you save 17 people's lives, this is a level of love, of compassion that you cannot just create in yourself. You can't just create that. You need to blossom with that. You need to have things happen, see it happen, and get a new understanding of life when things like that happen, right? Because I won't walk around and say that, compassion that I might have was just born into me and that's that. It's something that shaped into me because of the things that happened around me and how I perceive those things. And I'm telling you, this is why Filipinos are the way they are, a majority of them, because they experience what they experience. They look at this, they realize we're still smiling. They see this day in and day out. Typhoons happen, and they say, let me grow from this again. Fall, get up again. Fall, get up again. And you build a resilience within yourself. And then you grow into, I want to save other people because I want people not to experience this in the way that I hate this. I can't believe this is happening to me. Rather than, oh my gosh, this is actually perfect. I don't want to be a victim to life. I don't want life to be happening to me. I want to be experiencing life. I want life to be happening rather than happening to me. Yo, that's exactly how they perceive it. And that's a beautiful way to look at everything. You need to understand that.
Or Private Antonio, who volunteered for a peacekeeping mission in a conflict zone abroad, only to spend his days teaching orphans how to write. These weren't isolated cases. They were everywhere. And as Hitataka traveled from island to island, from army base to tiny barangay outposts, one realization settled deep in his chest. The Filipino soldier was not defined by his rifle, nor his rank. He was defined by love. Love for country, yes, but also love for neighbor, for family, for the idea that dignity was worth defending. Even if the odds were stacked high, even if no one was watching, that love, quiet, powerful, often unnoticed, was the strongest force Hitataka had ever witnessed in his decades of service.
That was incredibly beautiful, guys, and honestly summed up a lot of it. I think a lot of you guys linked us over because of that compassion that compels you to understand something greater than yourself in this video. I really appreciate it, guys. I love you guys. Link over some more. And yeah, till next time. Peace. How good you been living? Wait, how good you been living? I've been living too good for you. I've been living too. Did what I did and I do it again. Every move that I make, I ain't feeling repent. Nobody believes to believe it's a friend, and you question your moves like you really won't end.